Welcome back. It can be really devastating when you lose a bag, especially when you're flying. I mean, you don't lose a bag when you're going on the road because you are in the vehicle where the bag is. It's rarely hear that. But when you're flying, your bag is, checked in. You don't even know who takes care of the bag, whether the bag is actually following you in the plane. There's nothing to show for it, at least from when you give it to the attendant and they scan it through the system. But we have heard recently that tons of bags have missed, especially in Nigeria. And we have someone who can give us an update regarding the developments. We have with us Wilson Uche. He's a travel consultant. Good to have you. Good morning.
My pleasure to always be with you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Now, this humongous amount of bags that have been missing that Nigerians have complained about. I mean, beyond the one that even Nigerians don't complain about, there are tons of them. Sometimes it takes days for the bags to be seen, and sometimes it's never seen at all. What causes it?
Actually, I would like to start by saying that it's not abnormal for things like this to happen. Normally, the aviation industry is a very professional industry. And of course, for an aircraft to lift, there has to be a certain requirement, including the weight. It has to be balanced. And sometimes I wouldn't want to just defend the airline when things like this happen. There's a whole lot of contributing factors to this. One can be human error. And of course, these are the things that we try, because it's a professional industry, we try as much as we can to reduce it to the barest minimum, because like I said, there's a standard. And an airline industry, an airline has to meet such standard. It's an international standard, and you have to meet it. So when there is a situation whereby such you don't meet the standard, of course, there are also penalties. In short, you see a situation whereby a flight is grounded for not meeting that standard. Having said that, like I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of contributing factors. One is a situation whereby overweight. Okay. Now people travel, and sometimes, especially from this part of the world, if you are outside this part of the world, you find out that sometimes when you are traveling, you are actually required to you're entitled to the hand luggage. Then if you have to carry an extra luggage, then you have to pay for it. That means the airline will now have make money out of it and also make adequate provisions for it. But here you have a situation whereby you, for benefit of compensating passengers, you are giving 15 kg extra to carry and all of that. It depends on the size of the aircraft. You find out that if an aircraft is filled to the brim, like passenger-wise, then you have people carrying like 15 bags. One person, 15 bags, and then the rest, okay, let's say on the average, 3 bags each. 3 times 80.
Wow.
You know how much it will. So sometimes you have to wait. Immediately you start loading the bag. Why at the check-in counter, they are checking the weight, because they need to also understand the amount of luggage it has to carry. When it is seats, there's a rule that says that passengers should be advised that their bag will not come with them. So extra arrangement is made to ferry those bags to its destination. So in a case where there is overweight, you don't risk the lives of the passengers, because if the aircraft has overweight, there's a tendency. Okay, let me give you an instance. There's this thing that happened in UK one time, when after loading, they realized that the amount of fuel, the flight is overweight. So the best option at that point in time was to reduce the fuel that it was carrying. In short, the aircraft had to fly over a sea. And while doing that, it discharged some amount of fuel in order to balance. That's to the extent an airline or an aircraft will have to go in order to ensure safety of passengers. So most times when these things happen, it's not because the airline choose to, because no airline would want to disappoint its passengers. They are under obligation to ensure that not just the passengers get to their destination, but their luggage get to their destination. And in a case like this, we should also consider. But there's another one that they talk about loss of luggage. That is where now a whole lot of things comes in. When employing in screening workers while recruiting, there are a whole lot of background check, especially in this industry. The handling in companies, that's the company that's then saddled with the responsibility of having to ensure the baggage, clearance of passengers and all of that. They also apply high level of security in screening the people they employ. Or sometimes, you know, there is a little bit of negligence. Okay, my brother, my sister, my cousin, and all of that. You don't do what you are supposed to do. In the airline industry, when you don't do the right thing to do, there's a result. You definitely get, and it's going to be very hard. You remember when we had the issue of underwear bomb? It was because somebody did not do his job adequately. There's issues whereby you carry liquids and they tell you are not supposed to fly with it. It is because it was realized that terrorists even went as far as mixing liquids and then getting the result of explosion. So those are the things, security issues that are put in place. So in a case whereby you employ somebody who you thought you know his background or made verification, and then the person is into piffering, and then you see a situation whereby bags are loaded, even with all the security cameras and all of that, the person still go ahead and do it. There's also a situation whereby maybe because of rush, that's why passengers are advised to come to the airport early enough. For international standard, you ought to be at the airport at least 3 hours to your flight, if not 4 hours to your flight, so that these things will be gradually done. But you see a situation whereby even while the boarding counter has closed, you see somebody running and then he gets there. Then during the tagging, maybe there's a misplacement of tag. A tag that is meant to go to maybe Warri is now tagged to go to Abuja. And then before you can trace, because in all these things, remember that we have like over 500 bags. So you will need to start sorting it out. And if it has gone to the wrong place, of course, it takes a whole lot. Let me give you an instance. A bag that was supposed to be tagged to, there's this ICAO airports codes. So Abuja is ABV and Abidjan is ABJ. But for us in Nigeria, Abuja is ABJ. So in rushing, the person might tag for ABJ, not remembering that Abuja is ABV. So in all that mix-up, the bag will land in Abidjan. And it will take a whole lot to be able to trace it, to find it in Abidjan, because they will go from one sector to another. Maybe the person who did it did not even realize he did it. So I can assure you that no airline would want to allow the luggage of his passenger get missing, because it's also a dent. If you remember that if I have flying you and then I didn't find my bag, you don't expect me to fly you again or fly with you again.
Is there some sort of compensation? Because then again, we find out that responsibility issue is a problem for airline people. You know, taking responsible actions towards recovering those bags is a problem. So how sure are we that this there should be compensation to these people who lost their bag?
Of course, like I said, the airline industry is one of the most professional industries you can think of. There is a rule and there's a guideline to it. Most passengers don't even know that before you purchase your tickets, there are terms and yes, you need to read it, because there is stated what compensation, if anything happens, how you are going to address issues when there are defaults, the airline's role and your own role. So sometimes we are very in a hurry to just click I agree. Immediately you click I agree, when things happen, the airline is going to bring out the terms and you signed it. So you are also bound by those terms that you signed. So in this case, there is a general international rule whereby when your bag is missing, you are entitled to compensation. When there's a delay in flight, people don't even know that there's also compensation for that. So you need to, how people really read. That's why most times when it happens, of course some airlines get away with it. But of course, you can't do such in America, where people are very much aware, sensitized. So he knows that if you delay me for 1 hour, this is my charge. So everybody is sitting up. But I'm not saying that airlines in this part of the world, they are not doing what they are supposed to do. Of course, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, you wouldn't be flying.
I understand that there could be human error, mistakes happen.
Yes.
But again, it's about what happens afterwards. How does the airline behave towards that particular person who had laid that complaint? Because I remember when we traveled to South Africa through, I don't want to mention the name, when we landed, the bag did not land with us.
Okay.
Of a colleague who had actually thought the bag was missing. So there were so many channels that we used in reaching out to them, and they did not even feel like there was anything that happened. 24 hours, 48 hours, nothing, no information back as to, okay, we have found this bag, or we're looking for it, or we're going to track back at it. Nothing of such, even though the complaint was officially, tendered to them. And nothing of such happened. Only when we were online, on Twitter specifically, to call them out on Twitter, that was when, they took it seriously. And then that bag came out the day before, the day after, the morning of the night we did the so-called campaign on Twitter, that they actually responded and brought the bag. So you could imagine, if there was no communication, if we did not even go on social media to call them out, I mean, it would have been even much more chaotic. I
actually agree with you. It actually boils down to customer relationship. And at every given time, an airline is expected to be very customer friendly and also address the issues, because your customer is your pride. That's why most times, while employing, you should ensure that people are adequately trained to know what they are supposed to do. Let me give you an instance. There's a particular passenger that flew into Abuja, but then his final destination is Enugu. So, but obviously while booking, he obviously saw Abuja and then booked Abuja. But when he landed in Abuja, he didn't get his bag, and he's headed towards Enugu. The first thing, there are rules like I mentioned. Within the first 3 hours of the complaint, there's something that should be done. And in continuation, if that person chooses to stay and wait, maybe in a hotel, of course the airline
have to pay for it.
Have to take care of it.
But most times we see them being charged for their loss of baggage. Why?
No, nobody does that. Okay, let me also give you this instance whereby the luggage came and the person took his bag, and then immediately he left the airport. He got home and then said, my bag was broken. There is no justification, because anything could have happened from the point where you left the airport to your house. So it is advised that when you notice anything happen, there's an appropriate channel through which you lay your complaint, and ensure that you have evidence. Like a form is given to you to fill. That form is where you lay your complaint. Ensure you snap it, have a copy of it, and also ensure that the person collecting it from you also signed, so that it becomes something that is binding between two of us. Then again, in this part of the world, we rarely declare what is inside. You now see somebody claiming that he has $10,000 inside his bag, or he has Gucci worth $1 million. But you never declared it while going into this. So nobody can verify it. So there's an international standard of what should be given to you. So somebody is saying, oh, what I have, my documents and every other thing. If truly you have such things in your bag, it is also very important that you declare it. In tagging the bag, there are tags that are called fragile. There are tags that are called maybe giving more attention. So you see that those bags are handled differently. These are rules in the airline industry. So, but when you don't keep to those rules, because maybe you are not aware, you wouldn't blame anybody. They say ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So people need to now become more aware, read and become more aware about their rights and obligation, especially when it gets to the point of flying. When you miss your bag, of course, the airline is bound by duty to compensate you. But there is an international standard to how they go about the compensation.
I heard that if you lose your bag, it's within 7 to 21 days. That's when the bag will be declared lost.
Yes.
And that you are entitled for national flights. You are entitled to just 10,000 naira for that. And then for international flights, it's $170.
Yes.
And one wonders, which bag is 10,000 naira? And then talk about the things inside.
Actually, we need to get NCAA to also expatiate on that, because of course they have a department which deals with customer complaints, passenger complaints, and it depends on how it is addressed. Like, I think that part you are talking about is when it's delayed.
Okay. Not when it's lost.
No, not when it's lost.
Okay,
when
so
it's lost, there's also, you declare what is inside, the airline will wait, and everybody will come to this thing.
An agreement as to how much to be paid.
Yes, exactly.
Is that how it's done?
Really
Actually, there's a standard, like I mentioned, there's a standard. It's not within my purview to now give you the standard. I think there's a right agency, government agency, that has that right. It's an international standard thing. But then, like I mentioned earlier, people need to read the terms in their tickets, because it's also mentioned there.
Who has that time, really?
Yeah, that is it. When you don't have time, when it happens, then you should be able to carry the consequences that comes with it.
But I'm just wondering, is it not part of the responsibility of the airports people, to also educate them before they take off the flight?
That's why I'm saying that there's this department in NCAA, that's Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, to sensitize passengers. In short, in one of the interactive moments I had yesterday with NCAA official, she gave me a document to that effect, and actually said that they are also going on a massive campaign. If you remember, I think that document was improved upon in 2023. Earlier on, we were using maybe the ones that were done long ago, but now it's actually been enhanced to meet with the yearnings of the recent yearnings. Maybe before now it was saying that you will be giving 1,000 naira. 1,000 naira then is not 1,000 naira now. So we need to bring it up to date. So right now it has actually been improved upon, and then they are going about sensitizing people on what they should do. So when you have such complaint, you also meet with such a department. The department is going to tell you what to do, what you're entitled to, and all of that. So you make your complaints. But then it's always very good that you also follow the right channel. When you have your luggage missing or delayed, meet the appropriate quarters, especially within the airline, and make your complaint. Ensure that such complaint is well documented so that you also have your proof.
About 20,000 air passengers lost 19,274 pieces of the luggage from January to this to June this year, and that's being reviewed by the federal government, and also a large number of people being delayed. What do you think caused this high number of missing luggage and of course delayed flights?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier,
Are you seeing corruption in this?
I don't want to narrow it down, because of course, because we have a corrupt system, a whole lot can actually be tied to corruption. The truth about it is that we require things to improve. I feel so bad that such can happen. But then it's good that data is provided, information about this is provided, so that a whole lot people have to sit up. The handling companies will now have to sit up. The obligation is on the handling company to ensure that they keep improving. There is no perfect system in this world. But what people do is that they try as much as they can to reduce any level of imperfection to the barest minimum. But then, let me give you an instance, that sometimes it can also be the fault of the passenger. We had a situation whereby there's these two passengers, quite aged. And when they came, they were assisted. But they came differently. But they came with exact bag, the same color, the same shape, the same type, everything. So when they kept it, and they now asked, Mama, where's your bag? Let me tag it. Mama just turned and pointed at another man's bag.
Wow.
But what saved the situation was that they were going to the same country, but different destination. So when Mama got home with another person's bag, she now opened, and inside it was so. But it wasn't the airline's fault. When you were asked, "Show me your bag," Mama pointed at her bag. So would you blame the airline as well? No. So it was actually sorted out. Of course, apologies and all of that and everything. But the good thing about it was that through the CCTV camera, it was discovered that there was. That's where I now told you that even when such mistakes come, there are measures put in place, because most of these airports are well secured, fortified with CCTV camera. So when things like this happen, we go through the CCTV to be able to figure out what exactly happened. And then within a short while, it was sorted out, apologies were rendered and all of that. And of course, it was Mama's fault. But the old man was very furious, very angry.
Yeah. I can imagine. I mean, you're looking to see your shoes and your clothes, and all of a
And then
sudden
you
sassy
see-
bras.
It can be very embarrassing.
But at times where the fault is not from the passenger,
Yes.
do you think there should be some probe by the federal government,
No, of
by
course.
FAC to these airlines?
Of course, because if maybe it's a situation whereby there's piffering, we wouldn't allow that person who did it to continue being there. That person must be prosecuted. There is law to this, especially within this, and that's why in the airport there is what we call ODC. That tag, there's a whole lot of security measures in that card, which of course I'm not going to explain to you. There's to an extent your ODC can go. You are not supposed to go beyond this boundary. So when they are looking at your ODC and you extend beyond that boundary, of course, we have the
Send you back,
ASEC,
yeah.
the aviation security. They will tell you, no, you are not supposed to go beyond this. And all of that. So I tell you that the airport is actually a very high, very sensitive and high secured place. So when things like this happen, of course there could have been a breach. So there's a thorough investigation. At the airport there you have all manner of security agents. The police, they are there. AFSEC, they are there.
Customs,
GSS, they are there.
NSCDC.
All of that, immigration, everybody, they are working towards ensuring a free flow of this thing.
In 2019 alone, 41,968 luggages were missing.
Okay.
Locally, it's minimal because in that 41,000, there's just around 490 something bags that were missing. But it happened more internationally.
Yeah.
As in, you wonder. I mean, international flights should have, the best practice in terms of aviation sector, but you don't tend to see that internationally. Like, beyond what you have just said, do you think there's a role that the passengers should also play, in making sure that the luggage is also don't get missing?
Okay, at this point in time, okay, let me also give you an instance. I think there's a role technology plays in all this. Sometimes technology can be an enhancer. Sometimes technology can even be the problem.
Okay.
Germany, to be very precise, Frankfurt Airport experienced this issue last year, whereby there was this issue of technical issue that happened with luggage and this thing, because these things are automated.
Yeah.
So because it happened, and it's one of the busiest airports in the world, so flights were coming and they were releasing luggages and all of that, and this thing is not working. So we had then in Germany over countless luggage waiting.
Wow.
So people arrived their destination without their luggage. Why? Because that thing happened, sorting this thing out slowed down. So it took a whole almost more than a month. In short, more than 3 months for such thing to be sorted out. Remember that sometimes there is transit. Anything could have happened along the transit, like the one I mentioned. But like you asked me, answering your question, when it happens, there are measures put in place to ensure that it is properly addressed. Like I mentioned, no airline, no professional airline. Every airline is very professional, and no airline, people who play in that level, knowing fully well that you have an investment that is very huge that you wouldn't want to toil with. Because any dent in your image is going to, just like you mentioned, you have to go to Twitter. That means there's negligence. Someone who's supposed to do his or her job did not do his or her job.
Okay.
So when okay, go ahead.
Just 1 minute before we go. This is Christmas period. This is the season.
And
So,
then it's a very heavy traffic period.
Yes, for everyone.
It happens.
So what do you think people should do? What are the preventive measures you think should be put in place both by the airline and, of course, the passengers to make sure that they have smooth travel this season without losing any?
I wouldn't advise any passenger to reduce luggage, because sometimes our people like to buy everything and carry everything, because this is a period where they come home and then people are expecting a whole lot from them. But of course, when packing your bag, you pack properly. You also ensure that when you get there, your bag is properly tagged. Before your bag is sent over, ensure that you confirm from your bag tag, because of course you are given a claim tag through which you will claim your bag. Ensure that it tallies with what is on your bag. Also, people go as far as using identification stuffs, materials, like rope, like writing on it. There has to be a way they identify. Because even sometimes you see a situation whereby, based on human negligence, somebody collects another person's bag. But then there are measures the airline put in place to ensure that nobody passes such a baggage area with somebody's bag. So they collect your bag tag, your claim tag, confirm that it is what is on your claim tag that is there. So I can assure you that with this rush coming in, airlines they also understand that this period is a very busy period. So most of them, they employ more hands, they put in more security measures to ensure that the loss of baggage is reduced to its barest minimum. But when it happens, nobody is going to blame anybody, but rather the right compensation and approach is applied.
All right. Thank you so much, Wilson Uche, for your time and your insights. Very, very insightful. Many thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, many thanks for being part of the program. We've come to the end of the program this morning. We're connecting to Abuja for the rest of the morning show. My name is Charles Pius.